Well, it is the happiness hour, but I'm not going to be singing along today. I'm still in that week of mourning for my dad, who died on Saturday night. So we are having a happiness hour. I have always said we will have a happiness hour no matter what. If we had it on the week of 9/11, and we're having it this week. But it's going to be a very serious. A lot of them are serious, I have to say. Happiness hours deal with some really super serious subjects, and this too. But this one is an unhappy topic on the happiness hour. But one I have not every, but a lot of people take on a mission, right? It's just, for example, you get an actress who's very much into Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. Right, or somebody, many are into AIDS, or some people are into child abuse, others are into slavery, modern slavery, sometimes called white slavery. Aside from all the things that I talk about and care about and work about or work for, I took upon myself to publicize a tragedy in people's personal lives that let's put it this way. I have not heard any public figure address this. And I don't mean senator or actor or baseball player, but even people who speak on the radio. I have not heard anybody address this. And I'm not sure why. And I have addressed it, and it's going to be my topic for today. Did I even say who I am? Did I say my name? Did I? I don't think so, did I? Hi, Fred Kaplan. No, it's not. Dennis Prager. I hit it. Dennis Prager. And I'll do this one in honor of my dad. So this topic came up again. I did something Wednesday. If you didn't hear it or you didn't hear me yesterday mention this, I think that you would be very. I know that you would be very touched if you got a recording of my Wednesday show, which was 3 hours about my father and parents dying. Your calls and my comments were a very powerful 3 hours. You can get the show at the Prager store. It's worth it. And one of the calls just broke my heart. A man who is in advanced state of cancer, if I recall this correctly. Stage 4 prostate. Thank you. And has 3 adult children, and they don't speak to him. Now, unless I was talking to one of the great actors in the recorded history, and he was recorded, so I say recorded history, who really was a molesting father, which nobody, from what he said, that was not the charge made. He could have said, and people would say, "Oh, my kids now say I molested all of them. I know of both sexes. I know, and they decided at 30 or whatever their age. No, I don't. Anyway, wasn't even raised. My suspicion is, from our brief conversation, is that after divorce, the mother alienated the children from him. There are cases where fathers do this for mothers. And I know of one. Although the one that I know of, there is communication, which is very different from. He engendered hostility toward his ex-wife because she left him. She just didn't want to be married. And I will say that if an ex-spouse alienates children from the other spouse, I have sympathy for the other spouse who left. It's like saying, yeah, you know what, I'm really not that good a person. A decent person does not alienate children from the parent, no matter how angry they are at the parent, for the divorce. It's unfair to the children, and it's unfair to the other human being, and I do not believe all's fair in love and war. Maybe all's fair in war, although I don't even believe that. But in love, no. So I want to talk to you today about this subject. If it played a role in your life, and a terrific call would be one where it was resolved. Because I don't only want lament, I want solutions. I'm male, after all. So I want to know if anybody has had an adult child, talking about adult children, not the 13-year-old who isn't going to talk to you for 3 months, and which is wrong too, by the way. I want to make that clear. Are there cases? I always get this. Are there any cases I can imagine where it would be warranted? Yes, I mean where the parent is such an evil force that any communication enables evil. I guess I can imagine that. There are always exceptions. I don't know of rules that have no exceptions. But this is a general rule that unless your parent has been evil and continues to be evil, I don't mean obnoxious. If nobody talked to an obnoxious parent, be a lot of silence in this country. Remember the woman who called me and said she doesn't speak to her mother. She hasn't spoken to her for years. I think the woman was 27, I believe, from California. And I said, so why don't you speak to your mom? Did your mom abuse you? Oh, no. She treated me beautifully. Did your mom, hurt you in any way? No. As I said, she treated me beautifully. So I don't understand. Why haven't you talked to your mom in I don't know, 5 years, whatever it was, 8 years? Because, Dennis, if I let her back into my life, she is a dominating personality. That's it. Your mother weeps every day over a daughter that she never hears from who plays dead because she has a dominating personality. Isn't that like capital punishment for jaywalking? Or, if you will, capital punishment for burglary. Okay? If dominant personality is as bad as a burglary. But, and of course, the therapist agreed with the woman. I think a lot of therapists are in collusion and will have to answer to God for advocating that their patient not speak to a parent ever. I mean, how about just emails? And what about the notion that, I will not let them even see my children? Because very often, if you're an adult child who's alienated from a parent that extent has children. Look, I have dealt with this in public, and I have dealt with this speaking to people privately, and, I always get this. Well, Dennis, you got to acknowledge there got to be some exceptions. Of course, so I acknowledge there are some exceptions. What does that have to do with the general rule? I mean, parents have called this show and cried, adult men in particular, have cried over living a life where their children don't talk to them, don't send an email. How about don't talk, just email? How about that? But starting with an email. Now the question that I have is, and there's no way to answer it. There's only God knows. Is it a lot more today than 50 years ago? I think it is. I think it was just assumed that as annoyed as you were with a parent, you still spoke to them. I also believe that there was a lot less divorce, and divorce is usually, in my experience, how this happens, where a parent is so angry at the ex that they alienate the children from that parent. In most cases, it is a terrible tragedy. Take your calls, 1-8-PRAGER-776, the Happiness Hour on the Dennis Prager Show. Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. And a very serious subject on the Happiness Hour. I'm not my usual cheerful self because my father died last Saturday night, and so I would not cancel the Happiness Hour, but I wasn't going to be as jovial as I normally am because behavior matters, and it's sort of in honor of the moment and also my feelings. But it's very important, the subject, very, very, and I guess it's appropriate. I mean, the thought of anyone I know, or God forbid, I mean, my own life, my child not speaking to you, was just so painful to me. So I'm raising this as a subject, the alienation of children. There is a man who specialized in it. I need to get him on the show. I forgot to do that. Ben in or on Long Island, New York.
Yes.
So wait a minute. Are you on Long Island?
Actually, I'm on.
Okay.
Taking my son up to Cornell, that liberal bastion.
Hey, I got 1 minute. Are you Jewish?
Of course, I'm a communist.
Okay, well, all right. Okay, fine. That proved it. But I'll tell you why I asked if you're Jewish. It's my theory that Jews always tell people what college their kid goes to.
By the way, he's a good boy, and I gave him a copy of The Last Hope 2 years ago. Whatever, The Best Hope.
Yeah, still the best hope. Go on.
He loved it, and he also loved the Judaism book. He went to yeshiva in Israel. He's no liberal.
All right, good. He's 4 years of fighting on his hands at Cornell.
Oh my God! You better believe it.
I do believe it.
But I'll tell you this: I'm an attorney, even though I'm a non-confrontational person, and in my career, I've had two cases. One where I represented a woman who was the alienator, and one where I represented a man who had been alienated. And when I represented the alienator, the father no longer, after about 10 years of not seeing his kids, no longer wanted to pay child support. He tried to see if he said, I'm out. And I eventually had to, to tell the truth to this woman because she wanted to have a trial saying she hadn't alienated. There was a shrink who would testify. I mean, I finally had to say, listen, you got to make a final settlement. It's over. You alienated these kids. I wasn't advocating that in court, but I had to tell her the truth. And she to settle this case, she bit her tongue because she wanted him to keep paying, but at the same time, she was telling her kids he was a horrible person who they couldn't see. So, it was a ridiculous situation. But she was bitter, the bitterness never ended with her. Now, on the other side, I represented a man who had been alienated by his wife, who desperately wanted to continue to see his children. And the only way we could work it out was by threatening to stop the child support. I learned that from the other case. And in the end, he dropped the case because with all of this, he started to it softened up and they started to have a slight relationship with his two kids, and then he dropped the case, which I thought was a mistake on his part, but I went with his, it's his choice.
Yeah.
But it was a tragic situation all around. I mean, both of those cases, they affected me.
Well, yes. Well, you're a good man. I could tell. Seriously, I love the way you laughed when I ribbed you about telling us what college your kid went to because you're Jewish. All right. Look, let's be honest, folks. Both sexes have done this to the other sex, but unless 25 years of talking to people I have met the exceptions, not the norm. It seems to happen considerably more often by women against men. Anger at men after a divorce and alienating the children. If he could do that to me, kids, he doesn't deserve to be in your life, and you'll be better off without a father because he so hurt me. That's how I think the inner thinking goes. But I will also say that there are a lot of children who decide quite on their own, without any parental prompting, to not speak to a parent, and that's the subject of this week's Happiness Hour, and I find it something that needs to be addressed, and it isn't, and it's so painful to me to think about. I am wary about expressing how much it hurts me because I don't want to reinforce the pain that some of you who have this situation have. I feel bad even saying how badly I feel because I don't want to double your pain, as it were. But I think somebody who has a microphone needs to say this, and if you are one of those children, you have to objectively ask: did he or she do that much evil that they deserve this punishment? Okay, let's go to Alex in Greenville, South Carolina. Hello, Alex. Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. Love your show.
Thank you.
Well, my story, I'm not sure if it falls exactly into your recovery clause there, but my father, he was born in 41, had a family with 4 kids, and when his oldest was 8 years old, the mother, she started cheating, and he found out about it, and he left. Well, at 8 years old, you're very, susceptible to what your parents say, and with him not present, it was all the mother's side, and she alienated him very greatly, and actually never even spoke with him until.
Wait, are you the child of those parents?
No. This was his first family.
Okay, so who ended up not being spoken to by the children, the father or the mother?
Father.
Wait, so because she's the one who was unfaithful, and the children don't speak to the father?
Exactly. Actually moved the man in, the replacement man.
So what? So she successfully alienated those. This is your father from his first marriage. Did he ever end up speaking to those children?
Well, there were 3 girls and 1 son, and he managed, when he retired from his first job, he managed to start a business with son, my older brother. But all 3 of the girls, they never spoke with him until he got cancer.
Wow. God, would I like to speak to those girls. Boy, if you're one of these adult children, I would love to talk to you. Okay, we continue. You're listening to a somber subject on the Happiness Hour, and I'm Dennis Prager. Hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager. And on Fridays, I was going to say Wednesdays, because I was thinking of male-female hour. I don't know why. Friday's second hour is devoted to the Happiness Hour, and I have a sort of vow. It's as close to a vow as you can make about a radio show, I guess, that I will never cancel the Happiness Hour. And I never have in 15 years, including after 9/11, and including this week, with my father having passed away on Saturday night of this past week. And but it's a very serious and somber subject. And by the way, a lot of the happiness subjects are, because it's, after all, happiness is a serious problem. There ought to be a book with that title. You know that? By golly, there is. by Dennis Prager, of all people. Get out. I'll be a monkey's uncle. What on God's earth is a monkey's uncle? That's dead, right? Your generation doesn't say it. I'll be a monkey's uncle. It's dead. It's gone. It's like cassette tapes, right? I mean, let's be honest. Subject today is alienation from a child, adult children not speaking to parents. I have a theory. I can't prove it, but I would love somehow somebody to do a test here. Are secular kids much more likely to be not to talk to a parent than religious kids? And I think the answer is yes, but I have no proof. I know that for religious kids, at least those who take religion seriously, there is a commandment in the Ten Commandments that says honor your father and mother. You don't honor them if you don't speak to them. And in most cases, I think that the children or whoever alienated the children will have to answer to God. In Los Angeles, I have your name as Dorothy. Is it Dorothy or Dorothy?
It's actually Dorcy.
Could you spell that?
Dorcy.
Okay, we have to send our screener into the punishment room. Just hold on, Dorsey, and don't feel guilty. You are permitted to laugh.
Happens all the time. Maybe I should change my name.
All right, we don't. The punishment room is not operative today. Our resident sadist is gone. That's it. It's it. Sean is not here today. He beats people up. Okay, so go ahead, Dorsey.
So, hi, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And my condolences for the loss of your father. My father passed away from cancer last year. So, in October.
I had my dad a lot longer than you did yours, so you truly have my condolences.
Well, thank you. So I'm the CEO and founder of the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, and I actually started the company based on my experience of alienation as a child and being alienated from my father for most of my life. And when I finally reunited with my father, it was after my own divorce and experiencing alienation with my own two children, and my mother had aligned herself with my ex-husband and went on a denigration campaign to try and eliminate me from my children's lives. And I became extremely aware of what had happened to my father, and it was in that realization that something needed to be done. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and so I knew I needed to make it right, but I wasn't exactly sure how. And so one of the things that made it easy to reunite with my father, and I think a lot of your listeners are probably alienated parents, is that the number one piece of advice I can give to them is to make it easy for their alienated children to be in relationship with them, because they're challenged by the difficulty of being raised by a high-conflict parent, the other parent who's causing the denigration.
How do you make it easy? What does that mean? Give me an example.
That's a great question. So one of the ways you make it easy is that the past is off limits. So there's a moratorium on the alienation experience. And so if you have adult children, what we tend to do as alienated parents is we want to talk about it. We want to explain to them that they were alienated. We want to talk about the alienation, and we want to ask questions why and to help them understand and really.
Do you have a website?
I do, consciouscoparentinginstitute.com.
Well, I thank you for the work you do. Send me an email, because I want to devote an hour of regular programming to people who are experts in this arena. See, it's again, though, the mom who did the alienating in her case, too. Dear, dear women, no matter how angry you are, that's really wrong. Really, 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 really wrong. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager. And it's the Happiness Hour, which I never cancel, come hell or high water, because that's the whole point. If the Happiness Hour were canceled because of unhappy events in one's life, then everything I have to say is pointless. It's easy to be happy when things are going well. The trick in life is to to work on happiness when things aren't going well, which for most people is most of the time. Life is very tough, or as I have put it, life is relentless. There are tough times, and then there are really tough times. And then there are really, really tough times. All right, this is dark humor. There are a lot of wonderful times, okay? I know that. I live it. So welcome to it. The subject is my pet cause. You know, some have Alzheimer's, which is, all of these causes are critical. And some have, you know, another disease. Mine is adult children who don't speak to a parent. And there are a lot more people doing diseases than doing this one as their pet cause. So that's what I'm talking to you about. And if you are such an adult child, unless your parent has been horrific to you and evil, then, you know, I mean, if your father is the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, it's okay with me if you're not, you know, having regular contact. But I don't think that applies to many people. Let's go to Steve in Dallas. Hi, Steve. Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks for taking my call. It's a very difficult subject, and one that's permanently a fixture in my life. My parents divorced when I was young. I'm the youngest of four boys, and there was no alienation by my mother. She raised us as best she could and did a pretty good job. We're all alive and successful. But nonetheless, my father was distant growing up, and we had a very limited relationship, but we communicated. And as an adult, we stopped talking abruptly. In fact, the last words I spoke to my father were, F you, and it was over a really trivial subject, and or somewhat trivial, relatively speaking. And 7 years later, he committed suicide. And this was a man that was successful, a war hero. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, 2 tours, and I always considered him a hero in my eyes. But we stopped talking abruptly, didn't speak a word for 7 years. And in January of 2010, he committed suicide, and it didn't dawn on me until he was gone how painful that would be. It is a gaping hole in my life that I'll never be able to get back. And I really appreciate you talking about this. I never thought I'd call into a radio show to discuss this, but it is something that is so painful. I can't imagine anything more painful except maybe losing one of my own children. But
let me just say, if I did this hour just to get your call, it was worth it. I would like to. Could we keep this? Could you mark that down? I'd like to play this again when I revisit this subject. Ooh, you really shook me up. Last words were F you. Then 7 years later, this war hero kills himself. Let me say this, because I don't have words of comfort. The only words of comfort, and they're genuine, are that you may have shaken up people listening who aren't in contact with the parent to understand that they need to rethink that. In that sense, you've done your father honor and you've done good. The parents who called my show, and that's how I learned about this, from parents calling this show. And I just remember a mother calling. His daughter never speaks to her. And she felt like she had already committed suicide. She was going through the motions of life. It's really in some ways worse than your child dying. That's a tragedy, obviously, and it's horribly, horribly painful. But to know that your child wants to be dead vis-a-vis you, that's very bad. I'm sorry, Steve. You're a very good soul. And I wish that I had broadcast earlier. He's 41 and feels this pain. Those of you who don't talk to a parent, what in most cases, can I ask you to ask yourself, what am I achieving? And does the punishment fit the crime? Because you're punishing them, clearly. I hope you realize that. There are cases where you're not. There are cases where parents don't give a damn. I know cases where parents don't want to talk to children. It's like telling me that people would like to live underwater. But okay. But that's pretty rare. Okay, we continue. Maybe I should do a PragerU video. I mean it, on this, because we do a lot of micro too. I would like to play Steve's call if I did one. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show, the Happiness Hour. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. And this is the Happiness Hour, talking to you about my pet cause. Adult children who don't speak to parents, and I beg them to rethink that policy. Play that last call from 41-year-old Steve in Dallas in your mind, where the dad just finally committed suicide. Yeah. Incidentally, August is fundraising month for Prager University, and we address these personal subjects just as much as we do politics and economics and religion. And I think we're going to do one on this subject. So help me change people's thinking in a good way by donating, if you would. If you want to do it in honor of somebody, a lot of you did it this week in honor of my dad who died Saturday night. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just giving you an idea of somebody you might want to honor if you did to give a donation, somebody you know and love who's living or who died. But we need your help, and you give a lot, and I appreciate it. PragerUniversity.com, or just go to my website to the banner. August is the fundraising month. Cindy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. What if my mom treats my children poorly to the point where we have had very limited to no contact? That is, I understand that issue, where people don't like the way the parent treats their children. Let me tell you a quick story. My grandmother, my father's mother, was a tough woman. She once told me when I was about 10 years old on the telephone, "Your mother is a Hitler." Would you hold that was treating somebody poorly at least? And I told my parents, Grandma called Mommy a Hitler. And everybody cracked up, which is exactly what you should do about it. You know, there would be no reason to have a commandment, honor your father and mother, if they were all easy to honor. It would be, right? It would be pointless. That's the point, though. Figure out a way, I think. Kyle in Arizona had his biological mother call him when he was deployed in Afghanistan. He hadn't talked to her since he was 5. If he did that, would he be betraying his adoptive parents? Well, your real parents are your adoptive parents. You're not betraying them, but I don't know what the reason is to do so, other than being polite because she called. But, of course, it's easier said than done because you were adopted at 5, not at birth. At birth, I would say, I don't quite understand the point. That's another subject. Cliff is a marriage and family therapist. I would love to hear from you. Sarah was alienated from both parents in Washington. Oh, God, do I wish I could talk to all of you. Anyway, now, folks, call in on any subject under the sun. 1-8-PRAGER-776.